My name is Luna. After our marriage, my husband James kept suffering one business setback after another. All his money vanished into thin air. He was devastated, drowning in regret. Fed up, he called me a jinx and divorced me on the spot. His mother, Sophia, beat me mercilessly and snarled that everything had gone to hell since I stepped into their home. Your feet bring nothing but bad luck, she spat. Women like you deserve this. She humiliated me in ways I can't even repeat. I wept and screamed, but I hadn't done anything wrong. No one cared. Forced out, I had no choice but to leave that house. As an orphan, I had no one in this world anyway. I was utterly alone. To survive, I took a job at a factory. That's when things turned around for the owner. Profits soared into the hundreds of thousands every month. Luna, ever since you started here, it's been nothing but good fortune, he'd say. He expanded from one factory to 5. He became indebted to me, grateful beyond words. One day, he called me into his office and asked, "Would you marry me?" I froze at the question, but as I looked closely at his face, the ground slipped from under me. I collapsed at his feet, sobbing uncontrollably. It was him, Jack, the man who'd been like a father to me. My parents were long gone. I'd been orphaned as a child and raised by my aunt. When my first marriage proposal came, she jumped at it, eager to be rid of me. I was just a burden. I was too young, didn't want to marry, but they decided for me to lift the weight off their shoulders. The groom's name was James, son of my late father's old friend, fresh from studying abroad. I was beautiful, and that caught his mother's eye. The wedding was simple. My uncle had made it clear. If you want her as your daughter-in-law, take her. We don't want her anymore, but we can't give her a dime. James and Sophia had no objections. They welcomed me into their family. On my wedding night, I sat as a bride in our room, waiting. James entered, his face blank, no expression at all. He didn't ask how I was, didn't whisper a word of love. Instead, he snapped right away. This marriage isn't my choice, it's my father's. I'm not happy about it, and I'm not okay with it. I lowered my eyes and murmured, I know. He said nothing more and stormed out. Tears filled my eyes. As the door clicked shut softly, I felt the truth of us seal away forever. That first night passed in sleepless agony. No joy, no affection, no one to care for me. The next morning at breakfast, I tried sitting near Sophia, but she shoved her plate aside. Eat in your room, she said coldly. I prefer to eat alone. What could I say? Her tone told me everything. This marriage wasn't her choice either. The only one who'd wanted it, who'd pitted me, was my father-in-law, Clarence's uncle. He and my dad had been childhood friends, and when his son grew up, he thought, why not marry James to my old friend's daughter? I grew silent, retreating into myself until quiet became my habit. One day, Clarence's uncle asked me to join him at the market. We walked and talked the whole way. Your father was a good man, he said, and your mother was tough as nails. If she were alive, she'd have planned something better for you. I replied softly, if they'd lived, I might not have the strength to endure this. He fell quiet. He knew his family hadn't truly accepted me. Back home, raised voices echoed from James's room. He was arguing with Sophia. I overheard him. This is all Dad's doing. I never said I wanted to get married so soon. Mom, if you had someone else in mind for me, you should have fought him on it. Why are you yelling at me? Sophia's voice boomed back. That's exactly why, because you just went along with it. You should have stood up and said you didn't like her. She's not good enough for you. If she were, I'd have arranged it happily. I'd found a beautiful, perfect girl for you. But your father kept insisting, she's my friend's daughter. Take her in, make her family. Now what do I tell people? For your father's sake, I told everyone she was pretty, just poor, and I was fine with it. But my heart rejects her. His old friendship ruined everything. All my dreams for you gone. I backed away from the door, heart pounding. I wanted to run, but where? I had nowhere to go. That evening, James came to our room. His eyes softened a bit, maybe worn out from the fight, or tired of my silence. He sat close and said, Luna, You never say anything. If you want to talk, you can. I whispered, if I speak, it'll only confuse you more. He looked at me carefully, then added, you're beautiful, you know. That's probably why Dad picked you for me. I hid a small smile, a flicker of peace in my chest. The first kind words from him, even if just about my looks. It made me feel seen. Clarence's uncle was like the roof over my head. While he lived, the silence swallowed the complaints. But that roof collapsed. One morning, as I prepared breakfast, a commotion erupted outside. I rushed to the door. The maid came running, gasping, the master can't breathe. Time froze. James and Sophia bolted. I followed. Clarence's uncle lay crumpled on the sofa, face ashen. They rushed him to the hospital, but it was too late. The doctors confirmed, heart attack, gone on the spot. It was as if the last light in that house had flickered out. Days later, after the mourners left and silence blanketed the home, Sophia changed. Her gaze hardened, her tone sharpened, her cruelty unleashed. The woman who'd kept her distance out of respect for her husband now hounded me. One day, she burst into my room, slamming the door. Ever since you, this jinx, came into our house, we haven't had a single peaceful day. I couldn't say a word after hearing their words. I just saw the strange emptiness in their eyes, as if I were some kind of shadow. James hadn't said much even before that. He was already lost in his own shock. But then the business started running into trouble, and that's when he began to grow increasingly frustrated. After Uncle Clarence passed away, James was left trying to manage the factory all by himself. Every day brought some new problem. Shortages of raw materials one day, strikes by the workers the next, or orders getting canceled out of nowhere. One day, he stormed home in a rage. He slammed the door shut and marched straight into the bedroom. Looking at me, he snapped, I have no idea what's going on. It's all losses everywhere. I didn't say anything. He kept ranting on and on. After a while, I finally asked, can I help you with anything? He glared at me and shot back. You? How could you possibly help me? What do you even know about running a business? Just pray that things get better. He was furious, but his words pierced me like arrows. That evening, as I was working in the kitchen, my mother-in-law was sitting with her daughter. They were chatting away, and when I overheard them, my mother-in-law said, all we have left is God. This girl's bad luck has ruined everything. First, she took my husband. Now she's devouring both my son and his business. Her feet aren't lucky for us. They're the path to our ruin. My sister-in-law nodded along and added, yeah, Mom, I told you before to find someone else for our educated brother. But Dad's stubbornness forced us all to give in.
Who could stop him?
She was an orphan who'd never known a day of joy. And now, coming into our home, she's cast an evil eye on all our happiness. My mother-in-law's voice grew louder. Ever since she entered our lives, everything's fallen apart. God knows what's left for her to destroy. My sister-in-law chimed in, Mom, I'm really worried about my brother now. His business is slowly bleeding money. What if it all collapses? She trailed off. My mother-in-law replied, don't jinx it. My husband is already gone from this world. If something happens to my son too, who will I lean on? But I won't let this girl get away with it. I was standing at the door, listening to every word, forcing myself to stay composed. I quietly wiped my tears and slipped back to my room. There was no point telling James. He already had accusations etched on his face. One day, when James returned from the factory, his mother stopped him and said, Son, I'm only thinking of your well-being. Leave this girl. Kick her out of our house. She's brought her unlucky steps here and will swallow you up along with our home's joys. James shook off her hand in anger and said, Mom, please, after Dad, everything's on my shoulders. Let me work. I'm tired of hearing this every damn day. Hearing that, my mother-in-law went silent, but the quiet on her face was the kind that precedes a storm. A few days later, when I set rice on the dinner table, she flipped her plate over and barked, What is this? This rice has no salt at all. Have you learned anything in your life, Or have you just been strutting around on your looks? Jack was sitting right there. He glanced at me but said nothing, just picked up his water glass and drank. The atmosphere at home grew heavier by the day. The softness that used to flicker in James's eyes now vanished completely. My mother-in-law had always been harsh with me, but now she seemed to hunt for any excuse to hurl something at me, in words or blame. I spent my days staring at the walls of my room, which had silently witnessed all my tears. My husband was at the factory all day, and even when he came home in the evenings, he barely spoke. I'd prepare dinner, and he'd eat it without a word. Sometimes he'd mutter something like, "Too much salt," or "a bit too oily." One evening, as I was in the kitchen, James's phone buzzed on the table. It was an unknown number with a girl's name, Sophia. It kept ringing. Thinking it might be urgent, I hesitated but picked it up. "Hello." A soft, delicate voice replied, "James, why haven't you come yet? I've been waiting for you forever." I froze like stone. All I managed was, "Who is this?" Silence hung on the line, then the call dropped. I had just set the phone down when James walked in. He saw it in my hand, his face twisted, and he demanded, "Why are you touching my phone?" I explained. It was ringing. I just answered. He grabbed my arm hard and snarled, "Who the hell are you to answer my calls?" I repeated, "I only picked it up." He shoved me so forcefully that I stumbled back against the wall. The next moment, his hand struck my face. He yelled, "Stay in your lane, Luna. I'm tolerating you, but I won't put up with these stunts." I collapsed right there, sobbing with my hand over my face, tears streaming endlessly. But there was nothing left to say to anyone. James stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The next morning, my mother-in-law came into the room. Seeing the swelling on my face, she laughed and said, "Finally, James figured out how to keep you in check." I whispered, "Mom, I didn't do anything wrong." She cut me off. "Enough, don't whine. Remember, we've done you a favor by keeping you here." I fell silent. Excuses were pointless now. That same day, while I was washing clothes, my mother-in-law called from the guest room, "Luna, come here." I went over and found two women sitting there, probably relatives. She introduced me. "This is our daughter-in-law, Luna. She's pretty enough, but what can you do about her fate?" Everything went to hell the moment she walked in. One woman nodded and said, "So her steps aren't lucky for you. The very hour she arrived, she took it all." I turned and left without a word. Now, everyone's opinion of me was the same, silent, jinxed, and deserving of blame. That night, James came home. I opened the door. He barged in, kicking off his shoes roughly. I served dinner, but he didn't touch the plate. "I'm not hungry," he said. I urged, "Please eat something. You haven't had anything since morning." He exploded, "Luna, you're not my mother. Stop nagging me." I picked up the plate, closed the door, and sat in the dark, saying nothing. A few days later, James's friend dropped by with some files. As he left, he said, "Sister-in-law, James has been so angry lately. He's even staying out nights. Everything okay?" I forced a smile, nodded, and said, "Yeah, all good." He probably sensed it wasn't, but he didn't push. One evening, as I was folding laundry, James was on the phone, arguing loudly. "How many times do I have to tell you not to call at night? Things are tense at home. Fine, we'll meet tomorrow." When he hung up, I met his eyes and quietly asked, "Who was that?" He looked at me and chuckled bitterly. "What? Starting an investigation now?" I said, "No, just asking." He replied, "Remember, when a wife starts spying on her husband's shadows, she loses all respect." With that, he went quiet, and so did I. My mother-in-law's behavior had grown even harsher. She would sometimes say that I'd ruined the peace of her home, and other times, she'd point out James's condition, how bad it had gotten because of me. Now, I was nothing more than an existence in this house, a target for every pain, a wall for every blame. As the days dragged on, my status had shrunk to that of a mere shadow. I had no rights, no voice. Her words weren't just bitter anymore. They were laced with poison. Whenever my sister-in-law Sophia came over, her words dripped with the same taunting hatred she'd clearly inherited from my mother-in-law. One day, as I was tempering spices in the dal in the kitchen, Sophia leaned against the doorframe and smirked. "Sister-in-law, I heard you stay up all night. Are you chanting some spell? Or doing black magic?" I looked up startled. "No, I just can't sleep," I replied. She sneered. "Yeah, how could you sleep when your heart's full of deceit? A scheming mind doesn't let you rest." Venom oozed from her voice. My mother-in-law walked in right then and chimed in, "We told you from the start. This girl's no good." Ever since James got close to her, everything's gone upside down. The family's peace, the business, even your father's life, it's all because of her. I lowered my gaze. By now, there was no reaction left in my heart. Staying silent had become my habit. That same evening, James came home late, exhaustion mixed with irritation on his face. I handed him a glass of water, and he grumbled, "Every day brings a new disaster. The workers went on strike, and the lenders won't stop calling." Softly, I suggested, "Maybe talk to someone wise, get some advice." He glared at me. "You don't know anything. Your job is to handle the kitchen. Don't lecture me." The next day, my mother-in-law tied a black thread around her neck. I asked, "Mom, what's this? Is everything okay?" She gave me a strange look and said, "It's to ward off your evil eye and your dark shadow." Sophia burst out laughing. "Mom, give her a pot of water and secretly throw it out of the house. Maybe that'll break her spell." My breath caught in my throat. Calling me a witch had become their daily routine. I half expected them to drag me to some shaman one day. When my aunt called that day, it brought a sliver of comfort to my heart. Her voice was still full of warmth. "Luna, darling, how are you?" I couldn't hold back and whispered, "Auntie, nothing's okay." She said, "I'll come over." I replied, "No, just hearing your voice is enough." That might have been my mistake. The very next day, my uncle called. "Don't talk to your aunt anymore. Stay happy in your life. Don't ever look back at our house." Just like that, my connection to my aunt was severed forever. They'd stolen my past from me too. My days now passed in silence. One day, I overheard my mother-in-law talking to another woman. "Tomorrow, the shaman's coming to our house. He'll cast a spell on this girl and see where she's getting all this from." The shaman arrived quietly, sat down, and they made me sit in front of him. He chanted some mantras and blew on my forehead. Then he declared, "This girl is heavy with bad energy. There's a deep flaw in her horoscope." My mother-in-law jumped in. "We knew it. She's cursed." I said nothing. Now, even the shaman's words were ammunition against me. Sometimes James's phone would ring, and he'd rush out. I'd ask, "Where are you going?" He'd brush me off. "Just some work. It doesn't matter to you where I go." One day, while I was making tea in the kitchen, I overheard my mother-in-law on the phone. She was saying, "Yeah, she's my son's wife. Sure, she looks good, but she's ruined everything else. My son's fed up with her. You'll see, he'll leave her soon." Hearing that made me question my own identity. But deep down, I knew there was truth in it. James's carelessness, my mother-in-law's poisonous tongue, and that unfinished call with my aunt, they were all links in a chain. No day passed without my heart being wounded. Too much salt in the food one day, clothes not washed on time the next. Every little thing became an accusation, and with each one, my heart melted away inside me. I was alive, but only to endure their taunts, to carry the weight of their disappointments. I was certain this darkness would only deepen. In this house, in my husband's life, all that was left for me was isolation and blame. It was morning. I was kneading dough in the kitchen when my mother-in-law slammed a pot on the counter. "What kind of vegetable is this? You can't even figure out how much salt to use." Her voice rose. "Day by day, your carelessness is getting worse." I said softly, "Mom, if it doesn't taste right, I can make something else." She raised her hand and pinched my shoulder hard. "Now your tongue's getting bold too. Ever since you came here, it's been nothing but ruin. My son's business is destroyed. Our home is destroyed. Our peace is gone." I fell silent. Tears welled up, but I held them back. Sophia laughed. "Mom, words never faze her. We won't get rid of her until we call a shaman and fix her." My mother-in-law grabbed a pot and hurled it at me. It crashed on the floor with a bang. "Get out of here," she roared. "From today, I don't want to see your face or your cursed shadow." I stepped back. She had a wooden stick in her hand. She swung it hard against my waist and yelled, "Get out of my house right now." Sobbing, I pleaded, "Mom, where will I go? I have no one." I clasped my hands together. She snarled, "Go to hell, but don't ever show your face at my door again." She grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the door. She flung it open, and the neighborhood women were passing by. I hesitated, but she shoved me hard. "Get out, you cursed woman." I fell to the ground. My hand scraped raw. Blood trickled from my forehead. The neighbor stopped, but no one stepped forward. In that moment, a voice rang out. "Mom, what are you doing?" It was my brother-in-law, Jack. He rushed over, helped me up, and asked, "Sister-in-law, are you okay?" In exhausted words, I said, "I'm fine." Jack turned to our mother-in-law. "What is this? Why are you hitting her? You pushed her into the street. Everyone's watching." She screamed, "Get out of my way, Jack. This girl has ruined everything. She's devoured your brother. Now she's destroying our home." Jack wiped the blood from my forehead and said, "Mom, have some shame. If everything's ruined, it's because of your behavior. Sister-in-law hasn't done anything wrong. She just quietly endures it all." My mother-in-law shot back. "Oh yeah? She's cast her spell on you too. Now she's got you under her magic. I see you hanging around her room all the time. What's really going on between you two?" Jack's face went pale. "Mom, what are you saying? You know what you're accusing her of. This is my sister-in-law." She retorted, "I know everything. It'll all come out one day. Brothers-in-law like you aren't brothers anymore." Jack steadied me with his shoulder and said, "Sister-in-law, let's go inside." I whispered, "No, Jack. I can't stay here anymore. Don't stop me." He said firmly, "You have nowhere to go, and in this state, where would you even go?" Gently, I replied, "I just can't take it anymore." He gripped my hand tightly. "I'll see who dares throw you out." He led me back inside, while the neighbors still lingered by the door, watching in stunned silence. My mother-in-law had grabbed Jack's arm, trying to pull him away, and snapped, "Leave it, Jack. Let her go." Jack, fuming with anger, shot back, "You won't say a word now. I'm a rightful heir to my father's property too. This house is as much mine as it is his. And if anyone has a claim here, it's my sister-in-law as well." My mother-in-law fell silent, her face twisted in rage. I slipped inside and sank into the spot that used to feel like mine, my heart pounding like it might stop. My sister-in-law quietly typed a message on her phone, probably to my husband. A little while later, James walked in and came straight to me. "What's all this chaos?" he asked. Jack explained everything, and James listened in heavy silence. Then Jack turned to his mom and said, "Mom, you actually raised your hand to her. You pushed her out into the street. How could you?" My mother-in-law spat. "Yes, because she's ruining everything, and now she's got your brother wrapped around her finger too." James glanced at me. I sat there quietly, my face pale, eyes red and swollen. He stayed silent for a moment, then said softly, "This is all so wrong." Jack pressed, "It's not too late, bro. Just see who's against you, and who's got your back." James looked away. My mother-in-law's voice rose sharply. "Enough from both of you. You've both sided with this girl, and shut me up." I stood up slowly and whispered, "I can't stay here anymore." Jack looked at me and said, "Sister-in-law, you're not alone now. I'll make sure no one throws you out of this house." That day, everything changed for me. The house wasn't just quiet anymore. A wall of distrust had risen, with fractured relationships standing silently on both sides. The air felt poisoned, thick with betrayal. After Jack stood up for me, all that remained in my mother-in-law's eyes was one burning goal: to drive me out at any cost. And now, she was done with subtle tactics. She'd wield the dirtiest weapon of all: false accusations. In the afternoon, Jack returned from outside with a bundle of clothes for the laundry. He headed straight to my room, where I was tidying up. "Sister-in-law, give these to the Herman by evening," he said, setting them down. As he turned to leave, my mother-in-law appeared at the door. Her eyes were bloodshot, her face etched with that familiar sneer. "Well, look at this, sneaking around in broad daylight behind closed doors. You've lost all respect for the family now." Jack froze. "Mom, what are you talking about? I just came to drop off the laundry." Her voice escalated. "Oh, handing over clothes behind a locked door? I see right through you. I've been watching your little glances for weeks. Why are you always in her room?" I stood there in stunned silence. "Mom," I said quietly, "you're making false accusations." She shrieked. "Shut your mouth, you homewrecker. You've corrupted both my sons." Jack stepped forward. "Mom, have some shame. You're crossing every line." She fired back. "Then tell me, what's your excuse for barging into her room all the time? Brother-in-law, or something more?" Jack's face hardened. "I'm her little brother-in-law, and I always will be. But these accusations? They don't suit a mother." She started wailing, and my sister-in-law came rushing in. "What happened, Mom?" My mother-in-law sobbed. "It's all ruined, darling. Your sister-in-law's got your little brother in her clutches. I saw it with my own eyes." My sister-in-law glared at me with pure venom. I knew from day one she wasn't right. The door slammed open. James stormed in, his face flushed with fury. "What the hell is going on?" My mother-in-law advanced on him. "Son, do I need to spell out what I just witnessed? Your wife was alone in a room with Jack." James's expression turned to stone. He looked from me to his brother, then walked toward me. "Is this true?" he demanded. "Please, for God's sake, hear me out," I begged. "It's all lies. Jack only came to drop off the clothes." He yelled. "Shut up." I looked away, as if avoiding the truth could make it easier to bear. And just like that, I was thrown out of the house. I fainted from the shock. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed. A nurse handed me water and said gently, "You've been through hell, but now's the time to pull yourself together." 2 days later, a kind woman approached me with soft words. "We've arranged a spot for you at a shelter home. Full security and a chance for a fresh start." I stayed silent. My choices were gone now. The circumstances were calling the shots. The shelter's door creaked open to quiet hallways, walls adorned with posters of unfinished dreams, and a simple bed in a shared room. On the next bed sat a woman who smiled warmly. "New here? What's your name?" I murmured, "Luna." She replied, "I'm Sophia. Everyone's past here is a tangled mess. But remember one thing, no one calls anyone else cursed." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Sleep had been my enemy for far too long. The next morning, Shalini, the shelter's director, came by. "Luna, if you want, we can line up some work for you. We've talked to a few factories. Hard work will get you back on your feet." For the first time, I asked myself, can I rebuild? Silence answered, but a faint nod of agreement stirred inside. 2 days later, they took me to a towel factory. It was full of ordinary folks, but the vibe felt right, supportive, no judgments. For the first time, I felt capable. "This is cutting fabric," the supervisor explained. "Keep the sizes even and watch the clock." My hands trembled, but I nodded yes. The beginning was rough. My hands shook, my neck ached, but I showed up every day on time, came home exhausted, and crashed into silent sleep. One day, Sophia asked, "How's it feeling?" I said, "It hurts, but my heart's getting a little lighter." A month in, my hands moved faster, slicing fabric with precision. My attendance was spotless. The supervisor nodded approvingly. "You're a hard worker, Luna. Might bump you up to the next station soon." A strange warmth bloomed in my chest, like I was on the verge of becoming someone. Life at the shelter was its own world. Every woman had her scars, but the shared pain bonded us quietly. I didn't chat much, just nodded hello, and dove into my routine. One evening after work, the supervisor handed me an envelope. From the owner. Something special for you. I tore it open. Inside was a simple note. Asterisk Luna, there's something special about you. Women like you deserve respect, not pity. I want to marry you. I promise to honor you always. Clarence, company owner. Asterisk unease flooded my eyes, anger bubbling up. Clutching the note, I marched to the office. Sir, where are you? The chair swiveled. There sat Jack. Time froze. You, I gasped. Jack stood and approached. Sit down, Luna. I thrust the note at him. What's this? You're the owner, and you wrote this. He smiled faintly. Yeah, I bought the factory 2 weeks ago. Didn't even realize you were here until then. And this marriage nonsense. I pressed. He met my gaze steadily. Because I don't just want to support you, Luna. I want to give you the respect you deserve. The day they threw you out of the house, I had already walked away from that door too. My voice was trembling as I said, Jack, there's no trust left inside me anymore. He replied, just give me one chance. Only one, so the world can see you're not helpless. I fell silent. Maybe, deep down, some door inside me creaked open just a little. But trusting again? That was still a long way off. The alley in the city where the shelter home stood no longer felt like a stranger to me. Every morning, the same path, the same factory gate. Once inside, the rumble of machines drowned out everything. It was all routine now. But that day, spotting a new sign at the gate made my heart skip a beat. New management. VK Sons Company. The workers buzzed around me, whispering that the owner had changed. Heard the new boss is tough, one said. Fired a bunch of folks last time. I slipped away quietly toward the cutting room. As I placed my hands on the machine, the same question gnawed at me. Is my spot in danger too? A little while later, the supervisor walked in, holding an envelope. He came over and said, Luna, this is for you from the boss. I hesitated before taking it. Everyone's eyes were on me. I couldn't bring myself to open it right then. I stepped into the back room, shut the door, and tore it open. It was a simple note, but the words stopped my breath. Luna, I don't just want to give you a job. I want to give you respect in life through marriage. I promise to build your honor, your rights, your name. The choice is yours. I stood there, frozen, clutching the paper. My mind was a storm. Asterisk, who is this? Why the joke? Is this just another cruel game? Asterisk, I crumpled it in my fist, flung open the door, and marched straight to the office. Heads turned as I passed. My face must have hardened into something fierce. I pushed open the office door. There, behind the desk, on the sofa, files scattered around, sat the man who made my world spin, Jack. He stood up, his face calm, a faint smile playing on his lips. Sit down, Luna. What is all this? I demanded. You bought the factory? Yes, he said. And this letter? I wrote it. I hurled the envelope at him. You thought this would fix everything? That it'd be that easy? Jack picked it up and took a deep breath. Luna, I know your life has been full of betrayals. I'm not claiming I can make it all better. But I want you to know you're not alone. I shot back. You know what people will say? They always have something to say, he replied. But real respect comes from someone who lives with honor. And I want to give you back the respect that was stolen from you. I sank into the chair. My heart felt like a lead weight. Questions piled up on my tongue. Do you even know what I've heard? The doubts about my character? How our names were linked, and now you're doing this to shut the world up. Jack shook his head. No. I want to give you my name to show the world you're pure, and more than that, you're capable. I looked away. A calendar on the wall fluttered in the breeze. I can't decide right now. You don't need time, Luna, he said. This is life. More important than yes or no is who you are. If you feel you need a partner, this door stays open. I rose slowly and moved toward the door, hand on the handle. Then I turned back. Jack, do you really believe my life is worth that kind of honor? He met my eyes. Your silence, your patience, your scars, they're your true honor. I just want to be your companion, not your keeper. I couldn't speak. I opened the door and stepped out. The sun still shone as if nothing had changed. But inside me, a quiet stir had begun. Maybe it was the threshold of a new life. Maybe a decision still hung in the balance. As I left the office, my steps faltered. For a moment, I wanted to run far away, to a place with no recognition, no questions about who I was, where I came from, or why every door had pushed me out. But I couldn't run. His words echoed. Asterisk, I want to give you respect, not be your keeper. Asterisk, the next day passed like any other. I went to the factory, lost myself in the machine's roar. But every time the boss's office came into view, my gaze dropped. One day, the supervisor approached. Luna, the boss wants to see you. My heart leaped to my throat. I stood quietly and walked to the office. I opened the door. Jack was there, seated. This time, he didn't stand. He just looked up. Sit. I sat, hands clasped tight. You look troubled, he said. I didn't meet his eyes. Just tired. I know, Luna. My words are tangling you up. But this isn't some emotional rush. I've known you for years, your quiet strength, your ways, your endurance. It's all there. In a soft voice, I said, Jack, this is all too fast. No, he countered. It's too late already. He paused. Remember the day they kicked you out? I fought with Mom, Sophia. Took a slap from my brother, Uncle Clarence. But I let you go. Even then, I wanted to do something. You said, don't stop me. This happened because of you. Those words still stab me. I stayed silent, glancing into his eyes for a beat. No plea there, just certainty. You know I could go back to America, he said. I had everything. But I left it all to prove you're not helpless. What will the world think, Jack? I asked. They've already accused us. This will make all their rumors true. His voice sharpened a touch. The world always talks. If we live by their tongues, we'll never find peace. I want us to start a new life together, as equals, not on some debt or favor. Jack, I'm broken, I whispered. And I'm no fixer, he said. Just a partner. Do you really believe we can? Yes, he cut in. And if you do too, we won't need to explain to anyone. Silence settled in the room. Machines hummed outside. Time marched on. But inside me, everything had gone still. After a moment, Jack spoke. If you say yes, we can marry right here. Simple. In front of the factory staff, the ones who've seen your hard work. They'll witness us becoming each other's new beginning. I drew a long breath, feeling courage rise where tears had been. Okay, Jack. But one condition. What's that? This bond is built on truth alone. No show, no revenge. He smiled faintly and nodded. That's a promise. I stood, a strange softness easing into my chest, like years of hardness cracking open. As I reached the door, I turned one last time. Jack, listening to you today, I think I finally believe not everything's over. She whispered softly, No, Luna. Now everything is about to begin. It was that moment when, for the first time, I saw my life moving forward on my own terms. And perhaps this was my first step toward claiming my own destiny. The wedding was simple, held right in front of the factory staff. That same day, I was glowing with more hope than I could contain. Jack folded his hands in gratitude to all the workers afterward. I sat quietly. There was no henna on my hands, no vermilion mark on my forehead. But a deep peace had settled in my heart. The day after the wedding, instead of heading to the factory office, Jack took me to a modest yet beautiful house on the outskirts of the city. When the car pulled up, a small bungalow came into view, white walls with blue shutters. He asked, What do you think of this place? I stared at the door in surprise and said, Is this yours, Jack? He replied, No, this is your home. This is where your new life begins. I built this house especially for you. It's no mansion, but every wall holds peace within it. I stepped inside, and the empty rooms were filled with a faint, welcoming fragrance. There were wooden chairs for sitting. I said, "This is all so wonderful." Jack nodded, "Because I know you don't need noise. You need serenity." We spent those nights in the house, sitting on the rooftop, sipping tea. We shared light smiles over old stories, and silence became our deepest conversation. A few days later, I stopped going to the factory. Jack would say, "Rest, Luna. Give yourself time." I started reading books. I began planting flowers in the garden. I even sewed curtains for the windows myself. The house started to come alive, and so did I, piecing myself back together bit by bit. One evening, as we sat on the rooftop, Jack said, "Luna, you should think about writing your story, your words in your voice." I laughed and replied, "Who would read my story?" He smiled gently. "Your words are true, and there's always an audience for truth, even if it takes time to find them." The next day, I pulled out a notebook and wrote on the first page, "My name is Luna." Every day after that, I scribbled something, a memory, a feeling. Jack would praise me, sometimes just nodding quietly and saying, "These words carry real weight." Life had become a gentle companion. The wounds from before had faded into scars. One rainy evening, I sat by the window sipping tea. Jack came over, draped a blanket over my shoulders, and said, "You'll catch a chill." I replied, "There's peace in the scent of the rain." He looked at me softly. "The peace is on your face, Luna. It feels like life is giving back everything it once took from us. But peace isn't always forever." That morning, there was a knock at the door. I called out to Jack, "Someone's here." He was reading the newspaper and got up to answer it. I was in the kitchen. When he opened the door, an uneasy silence fell. I called louder, "Who is it?" Jack's voice came back, "Luna, come here." I stepped out. There at the door stood a woman. She was barefoot, clutching a plastic bag, and she said, "For God's sake, give me something." As soon as I looked at her face, my steps froze. My eyes widened, and words caught in my throat.
"It was my mother-in-law."
Jack said quietly, "Yes, it's her." I moved closer, my legs trembling with fear. She tried to recognize me, then gasped, "Luna? Is that you?" I stood silent. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes hollow with hunger. She said, "Daughter, forgive me. I've done terrible things to you. Now I have nothing left, and James is in jail. The girl he was involved with, she scammed him and ran away." Jack started to speak, but I raised my hand to stop him. Looking into her eyes, I said, "You can come in if you ask for forgiveness from the heart." She stepped back, trembling. "I'm a grave sinner, daughter. I don't want anything, just your forgiveness." Jack opened the door wider and said, "Mom, come inside. Whatever you've lost was your punishment. But Luna has already forgiven you." I took off my shawl and draped it over her, saying, "Wear this, you'll catch cold." Tears streamed down her face, without stopping, and I knew this was the moment we'd finally closed the wounds that had festered for years. Standing at that door was the woman who'd once been called my mother-in-law, whose voice echoed in my nightmares, whose words had pricked like thorns in my soul for years. Now, with tangled hair and ragged clothes, she stood before me, hands outstretched. "Luna, do you recognize me?" she said. I paused for a moment, silent. "I'm the woman who wronged you deeply." She collapsed to the ground, sobbing. Her voice was raw with pain, her eyes brimming with regret. Jack placed a hand on my shoulder. She continued, "Daughter, nothing's left now. James is in prison. That girl, the one I wanted as my daughter-in-law, the one I threw you out for, she robbed us blind." I already knew about James's affair. I'd hoped that girl would replace me in the house. But now, I regretted all so deeply. No one stands behind me anymore. When I went to the daughter I always treated like my own, her husband threw me out too. I've been wandering the streets for days. I mustered the courage to come to your street today. Before me sat the woman who'd once stripped me of my dignity. Now she was begging for hers. I said quietly, "Do you remember that rainy day when you shoved me out the door? You called me cursed, said I devoured everything." She stayed silent. Maybe she remembered. "What do you have left now?" "Nothing." She replied, "Luna, just a heavy burden in my heart. I tormented you. I insulted Jack, accused you both unjustly. Forgive me." Jack said, "Mom, we won't seek revenge. There's still a place for you in our hearts." She fell at my feet, sobbing, "May God keep you both happy forever." I asked for nothing, just a corner to lay my head. Jack took her hand and said, "Today, we're the ones giving you shelter, the very people you once banished from your home. Remember, Mom, respect comes from those whose hearts have room where hate once lived." We helped her inside, gave her water. Jack fetched warm clothes. That night, as we sat in the yard, he said, "Mom's a victim of time, Luna. The one who broke you is broken now. My first husband had thrown me out and divorced me back then, and now he was rotting in jail, paying for his sins, not just with regret, but with shame. James's arrogance, their betrayal, it all boomeranged back on them." 2 days later, my mother-in-law came down with a fever. I gave her medicine, cared for her. She kept repeating, "You weren't cursed, Luna. We were the unlucky ones for not seeing you clearly." I simply said, "Just rest in peace now. Forget the past." Jack brought vegetables that evening, and she said to him, "Son, I treated you horribly, doubted your character, hurled accusations. Yet you haven't abandoned me." Jack replied, "Mom, the bonds not tied by blood don't break over mistakes. They just take time to heal." Jack was her stepson, after all. That's why she'd easily pinned blame on him while excusing her real son's faults. That night, we all sat together and ate as a family. The woman who'd once refused to touch me or share a meal was now sipping tea-eyed brood. I knew forgiveness couldn't erase old scars, but it could start a new chapter. A few weeks later, Jack said, "Luna, I want you to finish that story you started writing. It's not just yours. It's a voice for every woman who chooses to live in truth." I nodded and said, "I've got the title now." He asked, "What is it?" I smiled. "Respect is given by those who earn it." We both laughed warmly. That evening, I opened the first page again and added below, "For everyone who finds the courage to rebuild after breaking, and for those who learn that true strength isn't in destruction." The rusty bell by the door hung silent now. No more chaos in the house, just the peace Jack had promised on our wedding day. We'd forgiven them all, and perhaps ourselves too. Those who give respect become respectable, and truth proves itself in time. Hate fuels temporary power, but forgiveness always wins hearts. Friends, I hope you enjoyed our story. If you did, give this video a like. New to the channel? Hit subscribe, and don't forget to tap that notification bell